Welcome! Today Richard learns Minecraft Portal Dash, a 1 to 4 player game by Ulrich Blum, published by Ravensburger. In Minecraft Portal Dash, you must escape from Minecraft's fiery nether dimension. Use your equipment and the dwindling local resources wisely to face a fearsome horde of mobs. Will you be able to reach the nether portal in time and find your way to safety together? The goal of the game is to successfully cross all game boards, turn the portal strip face up, and defeat the end boss. For this tutorial, let's set up a level 1 game. To set up, place the start strip at the leftmost of what will be the adventure board. Next, take the 8 game board tiles, shuffle them together. Next, take one of those game board tiles, turn it face up, and place it to the right of the starting track. Then, take the other one and place it face down to the right of that. Put the other 6 game board tiles back in the box. They will not be used this game. Finally, place the portal strip face down to the right of that. Now let's build our resource cube. Let's start by placing the block base by the game board. Next, assemble the support structure and place that on the block base. Next, take all the wooden blocks and put them all in random order inside the structure. Then use the flaps to remove the structure and place it by the cube. Throughout gameplay, the structure is where you will put used cubes. Next, we can see the piglin board has a side for 1 to 2 players and a side for 3 to 4 players. Let's set up a 3-player game by placing the piglin board next to the cube. Next, take the 8 netherite items and lay them out face up by the board. Next, shuffle the remaining 40 tiles and place that in a face-down stack by the board. Next, take the chest tokens, place one as indicated on the board, and place the remaining in a stack by the board. There are 2 boss boards. For our first game, we're going to go up against the Wildfire. Place Wildfire by the board on its easy side face up for your first game. Next, place the Wildfire mob inside a red base. All enemies will go inside the red bases. Place the Wildfire mob with the Wildfire boss board. Take 1 heart token and place it on the 20 section of the Wildfire boss board. For our first game, we will use magma cubes, ghasts, and endermen. So put every other enemy type back in the box. They will not be used this game. So choose a random magma cube and place it on spawn place number 1. Next, choose a random ghast and place it on spawner space number 2. And place a random enderman on spawn space number 3. Next, place the mob spawner somewhere by the board. This will be the front of the line where you queue up the remaining enemies at random. If there are any more spawner spaces, take the first mob of the queue and place it on that. And of course, the one behind it is now the first one in the queue to be spawned. Next, each player takes a player board. Let's set up a 3-player game. Each player takes the 5 item tiles of their color and places them in 5 of the spaces in the top row of their inventory. Each player takes 7 heart pieces. Place 6 hearts on the life tracker of the player board and the final heart on your leather chest plate. Place the remaining heart pieces somewhere within reach of all the players. Place the block color abilities and special items somewhere by the board. Next, each player gets a turn structure aid. Take the 6 black dice, place those somewhere by the board. Now let's choose our player piece. So take a base of your color and a skin of your choosing, place those together. Place your player pieces on the starting strip. As a tip, to start this game, place them all up in this corner as you will not be able to enter the lava. And whoever's going first is the one who receives the white dice. On their turn, players roll the dice, deplete a block of matching color, then activate mobs that match that number. When removing a block, you must discard the color rolled. The block must also be exposed. Exposed means the top and at least 2 sides are not blocked. So in this case, only this block, this block, this block, and this block are able to be removed. So when we remove this block, and this block are now both considered exposed. And you must take from the topmost layer that has a block that is exposed. So if later on in the game, this block and this block are exposed, but this one is on the topmost layer, so this is the one that must be removed. If there are more than one block to choose from, you may choose any block of that color. And you are to choose a block from the topmost layer that has an exposed block. So although this one's on the topmost layer, this is the topmost layer that has an exposed block. If there is no exposed block, so no block with the top and two sides showing, then don't remove any blocks. However, if you roll a question mark, you must remove one exposed block from the topmost layer. After completing the block die result, we now must execute the mob die result. The mob die will either activate or spawn. To see if the mob die activates the mob, check the upper right corner for matching mobs. If there are multiple mobs with the same number, they all get activated, and it is the current player's choice as to what order they would be activated in. For each activated mob, execute the actions from left to right. For the Enderman, for example, we can see that he would move up to 5 spaces and, if possible, deal 2 damage. As for other information, we can see that it has 3 health and it cannot be attacked by bows. For movement, we can see that he can move up to 5 spaces. For movement, both enemies and our own characters can only move up, down, left, right. There is no diagonal movement in Minecraft Portal Dash. So he's going to move 2 spaces, but this space is already occupied by an enemy or one of our characters. So he will stop right here. Because although we can see that there's spaces that could lead to our characters, this is a lava space. And this X indicates that he cannot go through the lava. The only enemies that possibly could are enemies with this yellow arrow, as opposed to this gray arrow. Yellow arrow means that they are a flying mob and are capable of flying onto the lava. Otherwise, mobs are capable of ignoring any other obstacle that might be in their way. So characters can occupy the same space another character occupies, but otherwise there is no sharing a space. After moving, mobs attack from adjacent spaces, so in this case, this Enderman would not attack. But in this example, after moving as close as he could to our characters, he would be adjacent, so that means he can attack. So an enemy will stop moving after it has moved its maximum amount of spaces, or is otherwise unable to move. When it comes to mob attacks, most mobs attack adjacently. Some mobs, however, are also able to do a ranged attack, indicated by this symbol here. The number next to the symbol is how many spaces away the mob can attack you from. And mobs stop movement when they are in range. So if this ghast started in this space, for example, there would be no need to move closer to attack, so he would move on to the attack phase. So if this ghast were to attack the blue player, he would count spaces away the way he would movement, vertically and horizontally. So 1, 2 spaces away, this ghast can attack the blue player. When a mob has a choice between which players to attack, the current player will decide which one will be attacked. So one player will lose 2 hearts. It will not be split between the players. As previously stated, the amount of negative hearts on the mob standee is how many hearts get removed from your player board. So if you took 2 hit points, remove 1 heart from your armor first, move the armor down to the damaged section of your inventory, then remove 1 heart from your life tracker. You can own multiple pieces of armor. Just remember that the health points are taken off of the armor before they are taken off of the life tracker. If after rolling your dice, you are unable to activate an enemy because none of the enemies match the die number rolled, enemies will instead be spawned. So take the mob from the front of the spawn line and place it on the spawner space closest to the current active player. However, if every spawner space is occupied, do not spawn a mob. And the newly spawned mob is not active, so mobs will either activate or spawn. They will not do both, even if the mob spawned matches the number that was rolled. After resolving the dice actions, it is now time for you to take your own actions. To help you keep track of which action you're on, take the 2 white dice and place them on the designated spot of your player board. And now when you're taking your first action, take the first white die and move it to the right side of your player board. After you've completed your first action, take the second white die and move it to the right side of your player board and complete your second action. Let's start with the basic actions we can take. Mine 1 block, move 1 space, or repair one of your items. And it is possible to use both of your action points to do the same action. For mine 1 block, you can only mine a block that is exposed, so the top and at least 2 of the sides showing. Each color of block has its own ability. If you mined a red block, choose any player. It does not have to be yourself to replenish their life tracker. But note only their life tracker. For a gray block, choose any one player to repair all their items, including replenishing any hearts that may be missing from their armor. If you mine a yellow block, choose any player to receive a new item. To receive a new item, take the top 2 items of the item stack, flip them over, and choose which one you wish to keep. Put the other one in a discard pile. Place that new item in a vacant slot in the top row of your inventory. If there is no more space in the inventory, one item must be discarded, whether it be the one you chose or one that is already in your inventory. And you are able to use the new item to replace any item in your inventory. It does not have to be a similar one. If you're replacing an item that's in the damaged row, place the new item in the active row. If an item is going to be replacing one of your starter items, do not place that starter item in the discard pile. Instead, remove it from the game completely. If you mine a black block, take one of the face-up netherite items, as well as the top 5 items of the item stack without seeing what they are. Shuffle those together, then place that stack of now 6 items on the item stack. Later on, when a player draws the netherite item, they may decide if they wish to keep or discard that item. If a player chooses not to keep it, then place it in the discard pile. The next time an item needs to be drawn, but there are no items to draw, then the item pile gets shuffled back together to become a new draw pile that the netherite item is now a part of. After drawing any of these 4 colors, discard the block. However, if a player mines a brown block, the brown block will be placed somewhere on the board. We can see by the X that you cannot step onto lava. We can see by this -1 heart that you can step onto magma, but you would lose 1 heart to do so. But if you stayed on that space, you do not continue losing hearts. It's only when you initially step onto it that you lose a heart. And with soul sand, we can see that we need to have 2 steps available to us instead of just 1 in order to move on to it. What a brown block does is allows us to enter onto that space as though it were a normal space. Just be aware that regular mobs can also move onto those spaces. Remember, mobs have no issues moving over obstructions, whether it's magma or soul sand. And although they cannot move onto lava, they can if there is a brown block there. As an alternative to using blocks for their color ability, you can instead use them for piglin tasks. And you can place it on any task of the piglin board, but be aware that task A must be completed before the final block of the top layer is removed. If the top layer of the cube is removed but task A is completed, congratulations. However, if all the blocks in the top layer have been removed and task A is not complete, you lose. Each column of the Piglin board must consist of blocks of the same color. So when you put a red block here, the remainder of the blocks must be red in this column. So all of B must be completed before the second layer down is completed, and C must be completed before the final block of the third layer is removed. Note that your basic actions can be done at any time. However, if you choose any of these actions, they can be done once before they are moved to the damaged slot underneath. As for other mining actions you can do, you can choose your basic pickaxe, which lets you mine up to 2 blocks. When mining more than 1 block, mine the blocks. Then immediately use them. They cannot be saved. This pickaxe allows you to mine up to 3 blocks. But if you wish, you are allowed to mine fewer blocks than the maximum indicated. With a diamond pickaxe, you can choose 1 discarded block as well as 2 regular blocks. And choosing a discarded block must be done randomly, so close your eyes and randomly choose a block. And a netherite pickaxe allows you to choose up to 2 discarded blocks. The next basic action is to move 1 step. And just like pickaxe, the number next to the space means you can move up to that amount. You are not required to move that amount. And a special note on leggings. They can be used as movement or as armor. Remember, you lose hearts on your armor first, and when you repair leggings, you may once again choose which side to place the leggings on. Netherite boots lets you move up to 6 spaces in one action. As well, where soul sand requires 2 steps, netherite boots let you use only 1 step. So instead of using 2 to get to this spot, only 1 has been used. As well, you can go through magma without losing a health point. However, you still cannot walk through lava. If a player ends their movement on a treasure chest, remove that treasure chest from the board, and each player then gains an item. So each player would take the top 2 items and choose one of them. Sometimes you may draw an enchanted item. Enchanted items have a purple background and this symbol in the upper right corner. To place an enchanted item on your board, place it offset of the matching picture, so you can still see the base value, which is 2 movement, and then we can see the enchanted adds 2 more movement if we chose this for our action. This enchantment allows us to move onto magma and soul sand as though they were regular spaces. Whenever an enchantment is placed on an item on the bottom row, it is automatically moved up to the active row, where it can then once again be used for an action. And note that you may only keep an enchantment if you have an item that matches, otherwise you cannot choose that enchantment to keep. And enchantments stay with the items, so being used or repaired, the enchantment stays. And items can have more than 1 enchantment placed on them. If we chose the repair 1 item action, we would decide which item we wish to repair and move it back to our active inventory. When choosing to repair armor, remember to place the maximum amount of hearts on the armor. As we've seen, armor is not an action to choose, so let's move on to fighting mobs. We can see on the sword there is a 3 beside this symbol. What that means is to take that number of combat dice. With a sword, you must be adjacent to the mob that you will use it on. So take it from the active inventory to the damaged inventory, roll your dice, then count the number of hits. We can see that we have 1, 2 hits. And if the amount you rolled equals at least as many hit points as on the mob, then you have defeated that mob. Then place the defeated mob at the back of the line and draw an item by drawing the top 2 items, choosing one of them, and placing the other in discard. If your roll was less than what you needed, then that mob is simply not defeated, and you must try to gain the full amount the next time you wish to attack. A bow will allow you to be at a distance. When using a bow, we can see we can be up to 3 spaces away. So we would roll the number of dice indicated, and ranged movement works the same as player movement. So we are 1, 2, 3 spaces away from the mob. So he would go 1, 2, 3, and hits for 2, defeating the mob. This sword enchantment allows players to roll 1 extra combat die. This bow enchantment allows players to roll 1 more combat die from 1 more space away. This enchantment allows players to re-roll any amount of combat dice once. When using a netherite sword, you may roll 6 dice and re-roll any of those dice once. And if you're able to roll 7 dice, first roll the 6 dice and then roll a single die to get your results. An enchanted netherite sword will let you re-roll twice. When fighting a mob, remember that some are immune to certain attacks. So for example, this ghastly cannot be hit by a sword, nor can this enderman be hit by a bow. If by the end of a player's turn, no one is by a face-down game board piece, take the white dice and pass them along to the next player clockwise. Otherwise, if at the end of a player's turn, someone is by a face-down game board piece, then you may choose to reveal that piece. If you do, flip over that game board piece, make sure it is properly aligned, locate the treasure chest icon, put a treasure chest piece on that spot, then fill the spawner spots with mobs in numerical order. So this is 1, so that would go there. The next one in line would go to 2, and 3, and 4. As for the final portal strip, the piglin tasks must be completed first. If it is and someone is by the portal strip board, you may turn the portal strip face up. Set up the board as usual, and place the boss for this game on the portal. The difference between fighting a mob and a boss is that with a mob, you must roll the full amount in order to defeat it. However, with a boss, the boss's health goes down by the amount that was rolled, until finally the boss is defeated. When it comes to the boss's attack, he will attack depending on what number you rolled at the bottom of his boss board. And note that the wildfire can move through lava. All players lose if one player loses all of their hearts, if the A section of the piglin tasks is not completed before the first level of the resource cube is depleted, if the B section of the piglin tasks is not completed before the second level of the resource cube is depleted, if the C piglin tasks is not completed before the third level of the resource cube is depleted, and if all 64 blocks of the cube are depleted, you lose. But when you defeat the end boss, you win. Thank you for joining me to learn the first level of Minecraft Portal Dash. Have fun!